What if I told you that long before Jax Teller's rise, before the bloody chaos in Charming, and well before SAMCRO became a gun-running empire, there were 9 men who started it all. 9 war veterans, drifters, and outcasts who came together in the late 1960s to form a brotherhood that would one day shake the criminal underworld. These weren't just bikers, they were the architects of what would become the Sons of Anarchy Motorcycle Club. Today, we're going all the way back to the very beginning, to the lives, sacrifices, betrayals, and legacies of the first 9. Because the story of Sons of Anarchy doesn't start with Jax Teller. It starts in 1967, Northern California, with men who no longer recognized the country they fought for and who built their own kingdom on 2 wheels. John Teller, the visionary. At the heart of the first 9 was John Teller, a Vietnam veteran. John returned from war disillusioned by America's politics, its endless conflicts, and its betrayal of soldiers who gave everything only to be forgotten. John believed in freedom, in liberty, and in carving out a space for people who didn't belong. He envisioned the Sons as a community, a brotherhood of outsiders who could live by their own code. But John wasn't blind to the darker temptations: greed, violence, and power. That fear poured into his famous manuscript, The Life and Death of SAMCRO. It was both a blueprint and a warning, a document that would outlive him and haunt his son, Jax, decades later. For John Teller, SAMCRO was never meant to be a criminal empire. It was supposed to be about family, freedom, and rebellion. But as history shows, even the strongest ideals can be twisted. Piney Winston, the loyalist. Standing shoulder to shoulder with John was Piney Winston. Another Vietnam veteran. Piney was scarred by war, but his loyalty was unbreakable. He embodied the old-school spirit, respect, tradition, and brotherhood. Even in his later years, relying on an oxygen tank, Piney was a giant in the clubhouse. He believed Jax could restore his father's vision, but his deep mistrust of Clay Morrow set him on a collision course with the future. In the end, Piney paid the ultimate price for that loyalty. Clay murdered him, erasing one of the last voices still clinging to John Teller's dream. Lenny the Pimp Janowitz, the survivor. Then there was Lenny the Pimp Janowitz, strong, wild, larger than life. A former bodybuilder, Lenny was as intimidating as he was charismatic, but his reckless streak eventually caught up with him. After a raid went wrong, Lenny was convicted of murdering federal agents and locked away for life. Even from behind bars in Stockton, he never stopped being a son. He struck deals, built alliances with the Russian mob, and showed that SAMCRO's influence didn't end at prison walls. Keith McGee, the betrayer. Keith McGee brought a global connection. An Irish immigrant, McGee linked SAMCRO to Belfast and to the Irish Republican Army. His role helped expand the Sons into an international brotherhood, but loyalty has its limits. Greed pulled McGee into dangerous waters, and when his betrayal surfaced, Clay Morrow personally ended his life, pushing him from a rooftop in Belfast. It was a brutal act that showed just how far the club had strayed from John Teller's ideals. Wally Grosser, the tragic Wally Grosser, lived a drifting life before the club, hustling stolen goods to survive. For him, the Sons were a family, a place to belong. But his fight wasn't with rivals or the law. It was with his own body. Diagnosed with liver disease, Wally ended his life in 1986, a sad reminder that not all of SAMCRO's struggles came from the streets. Thomas Uncle Tom Whitney, the connector. Thomas Uncle Tom Whitney joined in 1968. Unlike some of the others, he came with underworld connections. Those ties gave SAMCRO resources and protection in their early days. Though his past was dark, the Sons embraced him as a brother. Whitney would later be the last of the first 9 to die before the events we see in the series. Chico Villanueva, the bridge. Chico Villanueva, a Marine and Vietnam veteran, lived for the freedom of the open road. Tied to the Mayans Motorcycle Club through family, he became a crucial bridge between SAMCRO and rival gangs. But like so many who came home from war, Chico struggled with demons. In 1976, at just 32 years old, his life ended in a motorcycle crash. His death was sudden, but his loyalty left a mark on the Brotherhood. Otto "Lil Killer" Moran, the fighter. Otto Moran, known as Lil Killer. He was small, but his reputation was fierce. After a brawl at a music festival where he allegedly killed a man with his bare hands, Moran earned his place among the first 9. But gambling became his downfall. In 1985, his body was pulled from the Sacramento River. Whether it was murder, revenge, or a tragic accident, no one ever truly found out. His story ended in mystery, like so many lives tied to the outlaw world. Clay Morrow, the E. And finally, we arrive at Clay Morrow, the youngest and the most ruthless of the first 9. Unlike John Teller, Clay wasn't chasing freedom. He was chasing power. After John's death in 1993, a death many fans believe Clay orchestrated, he seized the presidency. Under Clay, the Sons shifted from rebellion to organized crime. Gun running became the lifeblood of SAMCRO. Clay's marriage to Gemma Teller and his obsession with control put him on a collision course with Jax. Their power struggle became the beating heart of the series. Father's vision versus stepfather's corruption. Clay's eventual death at the hands of Jax was more than just revenge. It symbolized the end of an era and the bloody cost of betrayal. The first 9 were more than just characters in a TV show. They represented the birth of an idea, a brotherhood forged in war and loyalty, that slowly became poisoned by greed and violence. John Teller dreamed of freedom. Clay Morrow saw only power, and in between stood men who were torn apart by loyalty, by betrayal, and by the brutal life they chose on the open road. So the next time you watch Jax Teller wrestle with the future of SAMCRO, remember, it all started in 1967 with 9 men, 9 bikes, and a dream that would grow into both a legend and a tragedy, because before there was Jax, there were the first 9.